Hello, and welcome back to this Christian Walk podcast, the show where no topic is too taboo to empower you on your walk with God. I'm your host, Marley B., and it is my privilege to welcome you to the conversation in season 3. Thank you to everyone who has been rocking with us since season 1. And we have felt your support, we have felt your prayers, and it's been everything we need to keep us going. So thank you so much for that. And if it's your first time tuning in with us and you're wondering just what the conversation is about, well, that's easy. The conversation is all about faith in Jesus Christ because we want to have conversations here that will hopefully spark conversations in your own life that will help to strengthen your relationship with God. Because that's all God wants is a relationship with you and with me too. And I'm here strengthening my own walk. So I don't want you to think I know everything. I'm here learning. I'm not afraid to ask questions because I'm trying to get all that God has for me, and I want you to do the same. So, thank you so much for rocking with us. And for our conversation, our first conversation for season 3, I invited two first ladies to come and share their experiences about faith and about walking this walk, learning how to balance their families, learning how to balance their duties at church, their duties with the community, and their family duties, and still have time to take care of themselves, and how God fuels all that through their relationship with Him. It was a great conversation. So let's get into it right now.
Walk with me, talk with me. What you know about God? Will He ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me. Hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen, homie, can you walk?
Ladies, welcome to this Christian Walk podcast.
Hello. Glad to be here today.
Hello, hello.
I appreciate you ladies coming here. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to. And I'm so glad that you guys agreed to join in the conversation with me. So, first of all, without further ado, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourselves. First of all, let's start with you, Quaisha. We're gonna
Okay.
give you a chance to introduce yourself and say how long you've been married and how long you've been in your position as first lady.
All right. So I am Evangelist Quaisha Biddle. I have been married for 6, almost 7 years. I have been, my husband has been pastoring for maybe, I want to say 2 or 3 years. I don't go by the first lady title at all. That's not my avenue. That's not my road. I tell anybody who asks, I was in ministry before I became, before my husband was in ministry, and then I went into ministry. Then he became a pastor, and it kind of put me in that first lady position. But anybody know me know that they don't call me first lady because that ain't my role. That ain't what I do. I tell anybody I'm not the traditional. I'm not what you would think a first lady is supposed to be. That's not me. So you could call me Evangelist, you could call me Quaisha, or you could call me Quay. That's it. That's me. We are the leaders, and my husband again is the pastor of Bruised But Not Broken Outreach Ministry, located in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we actually just inherited a ministry. We didn't start it up, but he inherited from my mother, who was a pastor.
Okay. Well, that's beautiful. And Pastor Taloria.
Well, it's, it's so funny that she mentioned it like that. But my name is Co-Pastor Taloria Green. I am married to the senior pastor of the Embassy Church in Lancaster, Texas. We're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have been married over 27 years.
Wow.
And we have 4 beautiful daughters, adult daughters. And I have been preaching since 2000. Is it 2003 for me? And I think it was 99 for him. So we have been together, we've been pastoring since 2004. So I totally understand when it comes to being or carrying the title of First Lady. I don't get offended if they say it. However, my husband has declared it for me, as well as we have a declaration in our house that if there's a first lady, there's always a first lady, there's always an option for a second. So in our case, we are not we're not called the traditional first lady.
Right.
I carry the title of co-pastor because he and I both are ordained ministers, and we did plant the Embassy Church back in 2000. Well, we started in 2004, but we opened the doors of the church in 2005. So we're in 17 years of ministry.
Amazing.
So that's basically my introduction.
Oh, I like it. And I like
Yes.
how we got right to stamping out this is not putting it out there. First of all, this is not your grandmama's first lady conversation. Okay, so just let's take away all preconceived notions or everything you might think you know about a first lady, because this ain't that. There is evolution in this role. I like the fact that you're like, okay, we're doing this together, because you hear a lot of pastors start their churches with their wives, but for whatever reason, they are the pastor and then it's the first lady, even though a lot of times, because when going to, some of the preconceived
Right.
notion is that that's the wife. You don't think of her as a minister as well, which a lot of
Right.
times they minister, they are, and
Right.
they have the credentials
Nonstop.
to minister, right? And it's just like, when did that happen? Like, when did it comes out? Because I have to admit, I grew up in a church where, my pastor was my pastor was the pastor, and then it was first lady who was in the choir. She was very quiet, she was pretty timid, but I was younger. I would find out later on that, she'd catch you in that corner and tell you about yourself, but I didn't get to know that. I got to
Yeah.
just see this demure, quiet lady that had the nice hat, and she would sit in front sometime, but other times she would be, moving in silence. And as I'm in a church where the first lady is a little bit more prevalent. You see her, she is running ministries, you know what I mean?
Right.
And while she
Right.
is she has a doctorate in divinity, she is, mind you, she is a lawyer, has been a judge, and she has a doctorate. So she's a lawyer and a doctor. So you talking about Heathcliff and Mrs. Huxtable in one person.
Right.
she a lawyer and a doctor, and she's not diminished at all. And she's definitely someone that will come up there and preach and things like that. But she's still first lady. You never hear her say co-pastor. And so I'm wondering, like, what made, when was it important for you to say, okay, not first lady, co-pastor, and why was that, Taloria?
Well, for me, the title of first lady really is not offensive to me at all. It's not offensive to me. And I grew up traditionally in a church where there was a first lady, and I had the opportunity to see the role of one that was silent, and I had the opportunity to see one that was active. And I was, spiritually raised in a house where the first lady was the co-pastor as well as a minister. So throughout my life, I have seen those different transitions. And I believe for me, what I seen when I was growing up was the lady who was honored to be the pastor's wife and respected for being the pastor's wife. And then the other young lady that I had the pleasure of being around, she was active in the church. She, organized youth ministry. She organized opportunities for us to go out and get and to get ministered to, and she would go with us. So she just didn't sit on the second row. She was also one who was honored because she was married to the pastor, but yet she still worked in ministry. Mm-hmm. And then once I spiritually matured and joined the Union Church, I had the opportunity to see someone who was all of those things, but yet she preached, she was a co-pastor, she worked well in ministry, she taught, she did all of those things. So when God called me to minister, it was under their leadership. And when God called Michael to pastor, with us, it was no option. So when people refer to me as First Lady, it's not offensive because I already know who I am. Mm-hmm. But it was declared in our house that I was not a First Lady. I was not just that woman that was going to be sitting on the second row, over in the corner, wearing a hat, that whenever it's anniversaries, I walk down the aisle. It was already declared that this ministry that we have is going to be us together. It's going to be us together. So for me, the importance to be called Pastor T is, and I was raised by a minister that basically said, none of that stuff is important. But what's important is that when God gives you the platform, that you're ready, that you're ready no matter what. So.
Yeah, I love that. And Quay, now for you, Quay, I know that I love the fact that your husband was on board with not just not saying First Lady when it comes to referring to you, but he had a name that I hadn't heard, and he had a title for you that I thought was extra cute, right? Which was Leading Lady. Mm-hmm. Instead of this my First Lady, this is my Leading Lady. And I like that 100%. Because you know what, the leading, and just because it's the leading lady don't mean that we need anybody that's a following lady either. We don't need her.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I really like the term leading lady, and that's just stamping out that box that you can find yourself in as a First Lady. You know what I mean? So I really appreciate him for that. Was there what was your perception about First Ladies before actually becoming one?
My and I guess I kind of had a in a box type situation for First Ladies as well. I grew up in a Baptist church. And so in our church, the First Lady, she was just the First Lady. She was a beautiful, beautiful hat, going all out with, with her 3-piece suit type, that sat on the front row. She may sing with the choir once in a while. But growing up, I never saw her in ministry. I didn't grow up where women had played a big role in ministry. So we didn't see that a lot when I grew up. In the Baptist church, but with my mom stepping out and going into ministry, it kind of changed the trajectory for me to see that women can go into ministry, women can preach, women can lead. But it was always, and of course, I never knew or guessed in a million years that I would be married to a pastor, let alone being in ministry myself. But it's not offensive. Now, let me say that it's not offensive when someone says First Lady, but I feel like a lot of times with me being young and people saying First Lady, it kind of erased the fact that I'm also a minister, that I also evangelize, that I also, I'm a prayer warrior, that I intercess for, I'm an intercessor. And so it kind of, I feel like when they say, and some people, like I say, a lot of people that know me and my husband know, and he'll clear it up in a minute. He'll let them know, this is my wife, Evangelist Biddle. This is my leading lady of Bruised But Not Broken. He'll clear it up. But for me, it's more so of them, because like I said, I didn't grow up seeing a lot of women in ministry. So for me, it almost seems like people will try to downsize, or they'll try to downplay the women in ministry. So it was always important for me to let them know that I'm not just the First Lady. I'm not just gonna sit here. I'm gonna be pretty. I will be pretty, but I'm not just gonna be quiet. And especially when it comes to my husband. So I'm really, when it comes to him, like there's a whole another person, because I have to, yes, we do have an apostle that covers us, but while we're there, I have to cover him. And it's important that people know that this is my position. This is where I stand. I'm the person that's covering him when he's, out preaching and praying and laying hands on the sick. I'm the person who's covering him, trying to replenish, pray all of this good stuff back into him. And so I never wanted people to look at me and say, oh, she's just that cute lady sitting on there. Oh, you don't have, because sometimes they'll do it in church. They'll look at the first lady and they'll go straight to pastor. They'll go straight to him and say, oh, well, first lady, she don't know. First lady don't know, but they know, like, I'm not gonna play when they come to him. And it was never offensive, but I just want to make sure that they know that I also carry some anointing. I also pack a heavy punch as well.
Yes. And I like how you brought up the subject about women in leadership when it comes to the church, because that's something that I have to admit that just recently, since having this show and having these conversations, that I never really took a lot of notice to as a person that's just been a parishioner all my life, right? I never really paid attention to the fact that, while women are 90% of the church, they're probably around 2 to 3% of the leadership. And I'm just wondering, first of all, commending you ladies on stepping out of that box of being of women in leadership when it comes to the church. I commend you on that, because that representation is there, especially with the church being so much women. We need to see strong women that are leading, we know that we need to know that God can anoint us and put us in a position to bring other people to him. It's not just the men, and not taking anything away from pastors or, from men that have been doing it. I mean, that's great. But at the end of the day, it is plenty of women that are capable, and we can't overshadow the fact that it's been plenty of women that have been capable and been shut to the back because they were women. You know what I'm saying? So I'm definitely interested in how you guys feel about that, because we all in the South. I know Texas got to be a little bit deeper with it, but I mean, we're in North Carolina too, right here in the heart of the Bible Belt. So I'm just wondering what your experiences with that have been. Let's start with you, Taloria.
Well, it's interesting that you said that. I remember when we first, I remember it's not always received. That is true enough. And when we first started ministry, there was, we had our name on the window. We had our name on the window, and it had the Embassy Church, Pastor Michael Green, co-pastor Taloria Green, and this lady came by. She was walking with her husband, and she looked at me and she said, is this your church? And I said, yes. I said, I co-labor with my husband. Right. And then she said, and she was reading, she said, so you're co-pastor Taloria Green. And I said, yes. And then she looked at me and she said, how does that work? I said, well, here's the thing. I said, my husband and I, we are in ministry together. However, God's order has already been established. There's nothing I can do to change God's order. His word says that the men are the head, and that is true. However, he has given me authority and power, as well as he's given me the opportunity to work alongside him, not changing his order, but obeying him according to whatever he has designed for us. So as I began to explain that to her, I told her, I said, so a lot of people are offended because women are listening to the voice of God, they're obeying the voice of God, and they are moving in the will of God. But we can't change God's order. We're never going to be able to do that. So for us to have to take a step back is not necessary when all we're actually doing is being blood donors, just like everybody else. So our goal is to make sure that the gospel is known to every man. Our goal is to make sure that no man goes without hearing. So when I explained that to her, I said, oh my God, this is why, because the Lord had given me that. He said, whatever you do, and even with the pastor that I came from under, because I came out of a Baptist church. I was ordained and licensed in a Baptist church. And my pastor, I was the first daughter, and my pastor was shunned because of it.
Yeah.
And he shared with me, he said, whatever you do, you never have to force your way. God will always make room for you. So your job is to carry the gospel in your loins and to always be ready, regardless of what they say about you. So I learned from him that you're always going to get questioned, that you're going to get, that people are going to tell you what you should and should not do. And it's okay, because everybody can have an opinion. It doesn't mean that they're right. It just simply means that that's their opinion. So in our case, we were even asked to be, we were trying to be a part of an organization because we were early on. And the organization told my husband that we can receive you as long as her name is not on the paperwork as co-pastor. So, and my husband said no. He said no, because that's who she is. And so they said, well, let's see how we can actually fix it. So in this particular case, we needed a sponsor, and we could not get a sponsor because my name was on the paperwork as co-pastor. So with that, God released us from that particular bondage, and he began to just open up the door to bless us. So we weren't offended by it. We respect what they were doing. We respected who they were, but we just wanted them to know that if this is what God said, then we're going to go ahead and obey what God says. But we're going to do it in order. You know, we're going to do it according to God's order, because it's something that we just cannot change. I'm a preacher. That's just who I am, you know, and I'm married to a preacher, which is okay.
Which is okay. I know that's right. And and what has been your experience with that, Quay?
Sort of the same. And it's interesting that you said that, because I watched my mom, like I said, growing up in the Baptist church. When my mom was first ordained as an evangelist, she actually had to leave a church to go to another church under another leadership to even be able to preach. Like, she was given a license to preach, but the pastor that she was under at the time would never actually let her, you know, use it, and it would always be an issue. So I kind of grew up watching her deal with that, and it kind of put a burden on me when it was time for me to step out into my anointing, because it's like, it's always questions. Are they going to receive me? Are they going to hear what I have to say? When I actually went up to, do my trial and my initial sermons, I had to go before a board with other people. So it wasn't like I could go by myself. I had to go before a board. And mind you, I had already been ministering for maybe a year before that for them. So, and it's like, and then at that time I had I called it a Press Their Works ministry, where I would get on Facebook Live and pray for the people every morning. And it kind of took them seeing that, and they saw the numbers, how many people I was reaching, before they would even say, okay, well, maybe she can do this. And so every time I got up to even speak or to minister, it was always a weight on me saying, are they going to receive me? Is this person going to say, you know, how are they going to feel about this? When I went into ministry, my mom passed shortly after that. So I never really got to minister under her, who was my spiritual leader at the time. So I didn't get to grow and be groomed under her. I kind of was groomed under my husband, which is still, I tell people all the time, my husband is my mom in the flesh. It's so crazy how they are so like the same person. But I remember we had a spiritual leader that I went to, and I talked to him, and I said, I had questions about prophesying, about being a prophetess, about being, you know, just questions, because the Lord was dealing with me so heavy on different things. And I remember him saying, well, we might need to pray about that. Did you pray about it? And it's like, well, I didn't pray. Now I'm coming to you. I need your guidance. I need you to step up and, you know, be that God for me. And I didn't get it. So it's always been, even now I have some insecurities about, you know, speaking, because I always have that in my back of my mind, like, am I called? Did I get called? Can I do this? Am I supposed to do this? Well, Lord, you said you would give me your word. You would anoint my lips and I would be able to speak. But then there's so many people watching me, so many people waiting on me to fail. And so, it kind of gets hard being a woman in ministry. And I remember too that before I became an evangelist, I had people tell me, you shouldn't be an evangelist. He's only going to make you an evangelist because your husband is the pastor. You shouldn't be an evangelist. You know what? Maybe you should be a co-pastor. You can't be married to a pastor and not be a co-pastor. So it was so many different things people was telling me. And I had to really depend on the Holy Ghost and talk to God. Like, what is it that you want me to do? And it's like, I don't want to be a co-pastor. And it's not even about what I want, but I know what God is telling me. He wants me to go out. There's so many people that I can reach with my voice by not trying to, and by no means am I saying anything is wrong with being a co-pastor, but that's just not where God has called me at this particular moment. I step into the role sometimes where I help my husband pastor because that's my job as his wife, to be his help. Right. So yes, sometimes in the church I am counseling. Sometimes I am praying and interceding for other people. But he called me to go out and reach those people, and so I have to still, I have to be obedient to that call before I can be obedient to anything else.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so, Gloria, what would you say in response to that, as she is in this stage of really trying to find that validity in her identity and where she's walking to? What would you say to her about that?
The wonderful thing that I love about God is that he's always going to make room for whatever it is that he has called you into. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times we look for that defining or that definition of who I am or what I'm supposed to be, when actually we're just following Christ. We're following direction and the will of God, and he will place in. If you just think about your whole entire life, I have been groomed all my life to be who I am. I just didn't realize that that's what I was. I didn't realize that the pressure that I've been through, even as a young girl, the mistakes that I've made, the saving grace that kept me, prepared me to be a preacher, prepared me to be in this particular position, prepared me to be a pastor's wife, prepared me to be a co-pastor, all of those different things. So for me, titles are not important, but knowing the call is what's important. And for her to say,
we're getting a little delay from you, Gloria.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but go ahead, keep talking. There you go. You're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I said, when she said that, it brought a smile to my face, because she's been called to go out into the community. She's been called to minister to the people. She's been called to even preach on the street corner, at the bus stop. See, she's been called to do that. She has a passion for that. She's been groomed for that. But it doesn't eliminate the responsibility that she is a pastor's wife. It doesn't eliminate the responsibility that she has to cover him, that she has to pray for him, that she has to pray for her children, that she has to pray for the flock that comes in. See, all of that, a lot of times we try to pick and choose, but when I think of who I am, I work a full-time job. I'm a CFO, and at home, I'm Michael's wife, and then I am, Ladrika's, Tyariel, Michaela and Michelle's mom. I'm Taloria and Taylor's grandmother. And, I'm co-pastor T. And then at the same time, I'm Pastor T, because I preach. So I have all these different roles that I play, but it doesn't define who God has called me to be. So I have to be all of those things at that moment in time. At work, I have to be the CFO. I can't just lay hands on the computer. I still got to make sure that I pay the bills, so and at home, I can't, Michael looks at me and he says, Lori, we got to have a long time. I can't just not be the wife. You see what I'm saying? So to hear and to know, a lot of times we're boxed. A lot of times they want us to be boxed. But unfortunately, we are all of these things. And in order for us to be all of these things, we have to follow the will of God and the direction of God without them telling us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Definitely well said.
I don't know if
well
I
said.
answered that, but I think
you did. You really did.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely. Okay. And at one point I want to go back to, right, because I wonder, I had a show that I did with preachers' kids, and I asked them what it was like to have their pastor also be their parent. So I want to ask you guys, you know what I'm saying? And I'm wondering, I'm definitely interested in how it works when you're the co-pastor, but how is it to have your husband be your pastor? Let's start with you, Quay.
Ooh, honestly, sometimes it's hard because when we first got married, neither one of us was heavy in church. And so it was a transition. Like we got saved together. And so it was a transition from us being saved, figuring out what Christianity, what religion, what, loving God and still being young. We're both young. I'm 32. My husband is about to be 30. We had to figure out how to be young, how to be fly, how to be saved. We had to figure all that out. And now some days he's my pastor and he gets on me. Oh, he gets on me so bad. And sometimes I'm like, well, hold up. First of all, wait a minute, and it's good. I won't tell any stories. It is amazing having him as my pastor. It scares me some too, because I had that with my mom. My mom was my pastor, right? I could call her and I would have to tell her what hat you got on. I need you to put on my mommy hat right now. And so sometimes I have to do that with my husband, but I know that at every moment of the day, he's covering me, right? And so sometimes I have to, like I think Miss Taloria said it, I have to step out of minister and jump into wife and make sure I'm there for wife, because as a wife, I have to always be there for him. And I can't always jump and go and run and minister to everybody else, and then my husband is lacking or my children are lacking. So it's definitely one of those situations where you have to have balance. You have to find balance. And I've really been working on finding the balance, because I want to be his wife more than anything. Like, I want to be his wife. I also want to co-labor with him. But after church is done, after all the people are gone their separate ways, after the souls are saved, I want to come home and be comfortable and be loved with my husband. And I want him to feel that as well.
Yeah. So how about the experience with you, Ms. Deloria?
We've had, we've had some major transitions, because with both of us being called in ministry, there was a point in my life where I was so out of order. I was so out of order. And, to be transparent with that, because I was excited. I was excited about being who I was. I knew that the anointing and that the power of God rests upon me. I knew that I had the prophetic gift. I knew that that I was called to deliver and set God's people free. And with that, I stepped outside of I stepped outside of being everything that my pastor needed me to be. And I did that for 10 years. I did that for 10 years. And Grace kept me for 10 years. He kept me for 10 years. And this was even before, because I started it before we even became pastors. I started it when I was just simply a licensed minister. But we were married, and I knew that God was calling Michael to pastor. I knew that God was doing something different with him. So I was too excited. I was too excited, and he would correct me on some things, and I didn't like that. And because he would correct me, on some things, I would take offense to it. And when I would take offense to it, I'd go and do my own thing because I knew that I was just as powerful as he was. I knew that I was called just like he was. So when other people would call me and say, hey, because at the time I was Reverend Green. So, hey, Reverend Green, can you come and speak here? Hey, Reverend Green, can you come be a part of this? Hey, Reverend Green, can you come and teach with me? I was excited to do that because somebody else was hearing me and he was always correcting me. So I started that path and God allowed me to go on that path. And one day he arrested me. And when he arrested me, he put me in a quiet place to where no one could touch me and I couldn't touch anyone. And no one knew what was going on with me and I could not explain it. But when he let me out of that incubator and he allowed me to see the light, I was able to come out of that forest knowing that I had been wrong. And he told me, he said, I've given you people to pastor and you've led them into disobedience. And when he did that, he said, so for a season, you're no longer allowed to do this, this, and this, and this. So I could not go and say, okay, God is not going to allow me to do these things. Those were my directions. So anytime someone would invite me, I would let them know that I'm not available. I would just simply say, I'm not available right now. If you have another engagement coming up, if you don't mind, just keep me in your prayers, keep me on your heart. And if God extends the invitation again, then I would consult the Lord to see if I'm available. But I would never tell anyone, okay, the only reason why you're not available is because he has sat you down. Mm-hmm. So for that, it was difficult. It was a transition. So now we're at the point to where, I shared with him, I went to him and I told him, I said, and he was trying to warn me. Each time he would try to warn me. He said, now, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But he would always say, well, Lori, if God has called you to do that, then why are you doing it here and not here? Why are you doing it outside of the house and not in the house? And I was like, what difference does it make? We're all reaching the people. We're all ministering. We're all doing, but really I was doing it because I didn't want him to criticize me. I didn't want him to correct me. And God allowed it. I'm telling you, all things are either God ordered or God allowed. God allowed that to happen so that I could be arrested, so that I would be able to tell other young pastor wives, other young ministers, other young, co-laborers in the ministry, that there's a path that we always still have to follow. And it's never going to be outside of the house. It doesn't make sense to pay someone else's light bill and your lights are off. Yes. It doesn't make sense to do that. So, and that's what God taught me. He said, you're over here feeding everybody else and your kids are starving. So you're preparing meals for them, but you're not preparing meals for your own children. So how about if we do this? How about if I send someone to feed them and I'm going to demand that you feed your own children? So he made me stay in the house. And many people didn't understand that. And, finally, when the Lord gave me liberty to start talking about it, I started getting criticized, but I was strong enough to handle the criticism. I wasn't going to change that. I was not going to disobey God. I was going to stay in line and in order. So following his leadership was hard at first. But now he honors and respects me anyway. And he did then. But even now, sometimes he'll do things without asking me, because he'll tell me, he said, well, the reason why I didn't ask you, because I knew you was going to find a problem with it. Okay, well, how about if I don't find a problem with it, I just offer an alternate solution that may cater to someone else as well. So my presentation has changed. And because my presentation has changed, then being my pastor is not a problem at all now.
Well, that's good. I'm sure that has to be a process. Go ahead, Quay.
Yeah, I was gonna say what I've learned too, and like I took it hard too when my husband first got on me. He got on me bad, and I was just like, "Hold up, wait a minute!" Like it took me back. But what I realized is that when I allow him to to get on me, it kind of shows the church people that they can trust him as well. That if he'll get on his wife, then surely he know what's best for us. And I try to be real strategic on how I address him in church. I try my hardest not to call him babe, husband, or anything like that while I'm in church. I try to make sure I'm always calling him Pastor Biddle, because I want the people that he's leading to also respect him. So I try to make sure I give him that same respect. And so whenever I'm in the wrong, I try to own it, especially if we're in church, because I think that when our members see him correcting me, they know that it's not just a show, it's not just a joke. Because like I said, he's young. Our members are a lot older than us. Like the members are older than us, and I want them to understand and know that they can trust him to lead them. And I think that if I step out of line in front of them or in front of anybody, then that's the first thing they'll say. Oh, he don't have control over his house. He don't have control over his ministry. He can't even control his wife, type of thing. So I really try to be mindful. And I get hurt sometimes, and I tell them later on, like, babe, that kind of hurt me a little bit. But
Yeah.
he always tells me what's best for me, what God says, and it's never to intentionally hurt me or embarrass me or shame me in front of anybody. But I truly believe that God leads him, and I trust that whatever he says or whatever chastisement he passes out, then it was because God said and it needed to be said.
And
And
see,
you know
there are
what?
some things that
Oh, go
God
ahead, Julie.
shows him. There are some things that God shows him that he is not showing me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to trust him because for me, I carried the baby. I'm designed to do that. But if I don't trust him for the seed that he's given me, then, just like in our natural bodies, I'm going to miscarry that thing. I'm going to abuse it, So there's just some things that some things, he tells me, he said, now we're going to be doing this and this and this. And I shake my head and I go, oh Lord, I was okay, if you say so. And then I'll get before the Lord and say, okay, now he said, we're going to do this and this and this. Now tell me, Lord, exactly what it is that he's saying. And then the Lord say, well, I want you to make sure that you're available to do this, this, and this. Okay, I understand. So I realized that, there's just some things that God is giving him. He's given him a vision. He's given him the seed to plant into me for me to carry. So it's important for us to just make sure we always stay in line. So I have to respect that.
And I think that it's a little one thing that I think is a little unfair about is that there's a school that teaches you how to be a pastor, but there's no school that teaches you how to be a first lady, right? Or it teaches you how to be a pastor's wife. It's no real set training for that. That seems like it's always just on your feet learning. That's just always a trial and error and just barreling through and learning as you go. And it's never going to be the same thing because you're dealing with different groups of people. Anytime you're dealing with different people, different personalities, nobody can really write a book on how to deal with that stuff, right? And for it not to be a real rule book, can I ask what was the grooming process or how did you prepare yourself for this role? I know like with you, Quay, yours was you went through a transition of losing your mom. Then you had to go through the transition of actually being the helpmate as your husband took the reins of a church. How did you prepare yourself for that? How would that process look like?
Praying, prayer. Losing my mom was one of the hardest things I had to experience because I lost my mother and my pastor in the same day. And so whereas losing my mom, I could run to my pastor and ask for prayer, I couldn't do that. Losing my pastor, talk to my mommy, console me, I couldn't do that. So, and I had to losing my mom, I had to be the rock for the church. I had to be the rock for my father, my siblings. I had to be the rock for my husband because they were thick as thieves, right? And so the transition of trying to figure out where I stood, it almost was like at one point felt like I was changing my identity because now I have to look the part of this first lady. I have to walk the part of this person. I have to talk like this person. And it was like, at some point, it's like, I can't fit into that box. That's just not me. It would be too much and too burdensome for me to try to be who they think that I should be as a first lady. So I just really tried, like I say, I pray hard. My mom she laid a solid foundation of faith and prayer. And so I pray through everything. I could be in my car going down the street praying. People may think I'm crazy because like I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do but to pray because I don't want to be in a place where I'm disappointing God. Like, I don't want to get into a place where I'm not aligned with him, where he's not talking to me. He's not moving for me. He's not, he's not there. And I know the word tells us that he's always there, but sometimes we can get in situations and places where I don't hear you. I don't see you. You can't possibly be here. Right. And so it's just important that for me, it was important that I found who I was, like my authentic self. Who am I? Am I going to be the person who wear these long skirts to my ankles? Am I going to be the person that wear these big old hats that don't fit me? Right. I have to find the avenue that fit me because I can still look this way and love God just as much as anybody else. Right. I can still, and a lot of times being young, that was one of my biggest challenges because the fellowship, we took over my mom's church. Her fellowship was with older churches, with older members. So now they're looking at us two young people like, oh, y'all don't know what y'all doing. Y'all not gonna be able to lead this ministry. Y'all not gonna be able to take these people. It was always people would come and check on us, not to see if we were doing well. They were coming to check to see what we were doing wrong. And so and I'll tell you, I love when my husband dressed up. Like it was, for me, it was always making sure he looked good. And so at that point, I just forgot about me. And so somebody had to really pull me to the side and was like, when your husband step out, you need to step out. Like if your husband gonna look good, you need to look good. If your husband gonna do this, then you need to, because y'all won, you next to him. Like he's not to say that he's the head, but also you need to be up there too. And so I really had to find me. I had to find me, to see who I was. Am I still gonna be, the Quaysha who like to laugh, hang out, who like to go to basketball game, all this stuff. Can I still be that person and be safe? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it took me realizing that, yes, you save, you can still have fun, you can still hang out with this person. The thing is, you don't conform to what they doing, you make them conform to you. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I had to learn.
That's beautiful. And how was that process for you, Tori? Like, how did you find your way in that position?
Well, in the very beginning, I said that I believe that I've been groomed to be who I am today for a long time. I remember when Michael was a deacon, and we didn't have. He had just got ordained as a deacon, and we didn't have very much money. And I went and bought me this cute two-piece dress suit from the secondhand store for $10. Oh, I was so proud. I stepped in church and I had on, it was green. It had a green base to it. And it was so cute. And oh my God, I was so fine in it. I walked in church and it had this nice little split up the back. And my thighs had, I had nice pretty legs and pretty thighs. And I was so cute. At the very end of the service, one of the deacon's wives pulled me aside and she said, now, baby, she said, you look so pretty today. She said, you're absolutely gorgeous. She said, but a woman that's going where you're going, a man should never see the inside of your thighs. Your inner thighs should never be seen by any other man but your own. I was livid. I was mad. I was so mad because I spent my $10 on this dress. And I knew, because that was back in the noodles and weenie days, where all we had for meals are just noodles and weenie. So I took from my noodles and weenies jar to go and buy me a suit because my husband is now a deacon. And I felt like I was insulted and not realizing that one day all eyes were going to be on me.
Yep.
And that's what, and she's gone home to be with the Lord now, but I threw that suit away. I never, after that day, I never worn it again. Even though I was mad, even though I was upset, I never told anyone what she said. I never, I use it as a part of my testimony now, but I threw the suit away. I threw it away. And why did I throw it away? I threw it away because I didn't know why it insulted me. I didn't understand why I got so offended. I didn't understand why I got so mad. So those were one of those things that I labored before God to try to understand. So from there, I went from being a deacon's wife to being a minister's wife. I'm like, okay, and I'm, I'm in everything. I'm ministering in the street. We're door knocking. We're going out. We're standing on the street corner. We're sharing the gospel. We're in front of the, we're going. We're doing everything. But I'm not a minister at this point, and I'm a preacher's wife now. So I'm a preacher's wife, and see, I came, I grew up in the church, but then once I left home, I said, this is my world. I'm never going to church again. I'm finna hit every club that's out there. I'm gonna drink whatever I want to drink. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. So I came from that world into, accepting Christ and loving him and leaving that whole world behind. And so when that happened to me, I said, okay, something's going on with me and I really don't understand what it is, but I'd rather be protected than to be unprotected. So I made sure that my feelings stayed within me. So I never shared them with anybody because I really didn't know what God was doing. And I was dead set on making sure that I pleased him. So I went from there to getting this strong urgency to minister the gospel. So I said, okay, I'll just teach. I'll teach a Sunday school class. I'll teach. I started going around it and so on and so forth. And after that, it came to where I said, okay, something burnt on the inside of me. I said, I heard the Lord say that today is the day. Today is the day. And I went forth and acknowledged that I had been called into the ministry. So with that being said, from a little girl making mistakes by having a child out of wedlock and early, going into being corrected as a deacon's wife, making sure that you always make yourself presentable. You don't ever have to give anyone anything to talk about. They're going to talk about you because of who you are. So don't add to it, basically, is what she was basically telling me. I just got mad because I didn't like the way she said it. But from there, I went to being a pastor's wife, a minister's wife, not being treated any different, but people respected him, which made them respect me. So did I earn the respect? Did I want the respect? Did I want the attention? I did and I did not. But there was a young lady who came to me because I used to cry all the time as well. Everything got to heart. I mean, anytime that I spoke, I always spoke and I would always speak with tears. I just cry. And she came to me and she said, Sister Green, you're gonna have to grow a backbone. And when she said that to me, I got mad. Now, what you mean? You don't know where I came from. You know what I'm saying? I was the girl that was on the street that basically said, okay, you gonna say something to me, I'm gonna say something to you, and I'm gonna spit in your face, and I dare you to do anything to me. So you're talking about that girl who is now saved, need a backbone. So I had to get corrected by a deacon's wife. I had to be told by someone that didn't know where God was taking me that I need to get a backbone in order for me to transition, to be strong enough to handle the different personalities that I have to handle today. So that transition for me was years and years of just being, like Evangelist said, someone basically came to her and said, hey, you got to step up your game. So I'm pretty sure based upon their delivery that, she might have said, okay, or she might say, how dare you? Either way, it was God using someone to say, hey, people are, I need for you to be an example in more ways than one.
Yeah.
So for me, that was that transition. I don't like flash. I don't like, I don't wear hats. You know what I'm saying? I'm kind of basic. I wear the blacks, the browns, the grays. I don't wear a whole lot of color. It's just, it's just not me, period. I just don't like it. But I love the fact that because of all of those corrections, people people have learned to I've learned to let people honor me. There was one of my members came to me and she said, I need to teach you how to be a first lady. And I got mad.
I'm about to get mad. I'm like,
right.
Yeah. I did. I got mad when she said that because I said to her, how can you teach me to be something that you've never been? So that was my first response. And then God arrested me. And he said, if you had just taken the time to consult me, I would have told you what she meant. What she meant was, you need to learn to let people honor you. You need to learn to allow people, because I was real big on, you ain't got to carry my Bible, you ain't got to put my shoes on, you don't have to give me no water.
Yes.
I don't want all that attention. You do all that, people gonna be saying who she thinks she is. And and it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with honor. So with her, see how negative all that stuff was to me, but it was really the Lord saying, I'm taking you somewhere, I'm putting you in a place, I need for you to be strong enough for it, and I need for you to be okay if people honor you.
That's good that you said that, because I need to do that myself. I'm real guilty of not letting people grab my Bible, not letting them grab my purse, my keys, but that is honor, and I should. I need to start seeing that as honor and allowing them to honor me in that way, because I'm not big on, like, if you can celebrate my husband all day long, I'm all for it, but then when it comes to me, I want to celebrate everybody else. And sometimes, and I was like that, I always thought, well, why she can't carry her own Bible? But that is definitely honor. And that's just showing that I might not be able to buy you this or buy you that, but I can definitely hold the Bible. I can get you some water. I can do that. So I needed to hear that myself. I needed to hear that.
Amen. This is already turning out to be a blessing. So that's what I'm talking about. And that's exactly what we are here for. Now, when it comes to, one thing that I have to say that this conversation has taught me is the importance about, and one thing that I'm hoping that people listening get, is that when you look at your pastor's wife or your or your pastor's co-pastor, or whatever, however you want to categorize or title that person, give them a chance to be who they are, and don't put what you expect them to be. I think that's what it is. And I commend you ladies, because I know the role has not been easy, but you guys have taken the task, and you are walking it with grace, and you're doing it by being yourselves, learning how to embrace yourselves, because God called you. You know what I'm saying? He didn't call you to be somebody else. He called us to, when he called us to be the best version of ourselves. But at the end of
Right.
the day, we don't have to be someone else when he called
Right.
us. Because if he wanted someone else, he would have called someone else. He's
Somebody
God.
else.
And
Mhm.
I think that that's a lesson that all Christians can learn. You don't have to be these Stepford Christians. People think that you got to be this certain way in order to rock with God, in order to walk with God, and in order to be called and used by God. He knows our specific gifts. He knows our personalities.
Right.
He made them, and they're all and he's so intentional. So I
He
love the
is.
fact that y'all get that about God, and that y'all are at a position where people can see that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times people that get that, they're not always in the front.
Right.
And it's good that
Absolutely.
people know how to be themselves and be in the front. So I commend you ladies for that. And just as we wrap up here, I want to give y'all a chance to just give some final words to a first lady out there who may be struggling with her own identity, or a lady that may be on the verge of becoming one, or making that transition, or who potentially is dating that deacon, or that pastor's best friend that just might take the reins, and
Right.
what advice would you give them? Let's start with you, Quay.
I would say trust God, trust the God that's in you. If he called you, he equipped you, he gave you all the resources, all the necessary tools to be who you are. Don't be so focused on the man, the title of the man that you marry. Hold him up, absolutely hold him up, but also don't lose yourself in the title of being his first lady. Don't allow that title to hide you, to diminish you, to allow other people to count you out or bring you down. Walk authentically in the calling and the gifting that God has given you. And if you're unsure about the call, the husband, the title, pray. Always go to God. There's never a time in your life that you cannot go to him. He's always there. He's always listening. The Bible tells us that he is attentive to the cry of his people. He will hear you. He will answer. He will not be slow to answer you, is what my Bible says, that he is not slow to answer his children. So just trust him. Trust trust that God has called you, and that he is placing you in the positional title that you should be in.
And Taloria?
The advice that I would give is to always remember that God has a perfect plan. So we are here to serve his people. So if we're serving his people, then don't get so excited that you move ahead of God. Make sure that you always follow his plan. To any individual that the Lord may call to be a co-pastor, co-laborer, an evangelist, be married to a pastor, or maybe even a preacher, I just want you to remember that if God can trust you with trouble, he can trust you with anything.
Yes.
So if he trusts you, then make sure that you're trusting him, and that he will always lead you. He won't put too much on you, and he's not going to give you enough. He's not going to give you more than what you can or your family can handle. Make sure that you always follow his plan, because it's easy in your excitement to get ahead of God.
Oh,
But if
yes.
we follow his plan, then we'll realize that he does trust us. And as long as he trusts us, then he will always make sure that he'll make room for whatever he gives us.
It's good.
Thank you so much, ladies, for being here. Thank you for joining the conversation. And thank you for your individual ministries and your service in God's kingdom. May God continue to bless your individual families and ministries. And you guys continue to walk in everything he has for you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I have
Yes.
enjoyed it. I was sitting here saying, oh my God, it's still so much stuff. I mean, it's so much that it's so much more, our children, our families. I mean,
Yes.
it's just it's so much more. But Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. I am honored. I am honored. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to my guests, Pastor Taloria and Evangelist Quasia, for coming on to the show and sharing your story with us. I wish you so much success in your ministries, and I wish many blessings to you and your families. So, if this information spoke to you, please like it, please share it. Definitely don't be ashamed or too shy to comment on the channel. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get more content from us. And if you don't want to watch on YouTube, you can definitely listen to us on Apple Podcasts as well as iHeartRadio. Now, speaking of all these platforms, I definitely want to give a big shout out to my tech man, to my producer, to the writer and performer of my theme song, and to, quite frankly, the best cousin a girl could ask for, Emmanuel Duncan. E, thank you for all that you do to help me, because, quite frankly, if you weren't here helping me, I would be talking to myself. So thank you so much for all that you do in the kingdom, and for the podcast. Okay? Amen. All right, so the revelation for the day, good people, is this. Being a leading lady in ministry is not all big hats and slow waves. It takes true commitment. It takes commitment to balance church duties and life duties and still have time to take care of yourself. These ladies, talking to these ladies today, definitely have inspired me to keep my own First Lady in prayer more often. And I hope it did the same thing for you, because it's going to take God's grace to give them everything that they need to show up every day and do what's expected of them, which is to walk in excellence. And on this walk with God, I know one thing for sure. Loving God can be easy. Trusting God can be hard. But I believe we can all get there, one step at a time, on this Christian walk. I'll see you next time.
Walk with me, talk with me. What you know about God? Will He ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me, hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen, homie, can you walk with me? Talk with me. What you know about God? Will He ride with me? Come and open my eyes for me, hear my story. Show me more what's in store. And once more, listen, homie, can you walk? Can you walk? Let's walk.